all this technology will help them to predict what is needed to do and when. And we can also avoid damaging equipment by having this kind of technology on board. So I think that this is what I have seen on the land side. And it is very much implemented on the land side. So why don't we do this on the marine side?
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners, and welcome to the 132nd episode of the Shipping Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the last episode, which was a solo episode with me, more focused on the actual producing and marketing of the Shipping Podcast. I hope you understand that me having a solo episode is not a way to reach my diversity goal of 50% men and 50% women on my show. But I'm trying to up my game and modify the concept. And as I said, I hope you liked it. Anyway, since the maritime industry has such focus on sustainability, I thought I'd better speak to some people who knows more about how we can reach the set goals. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Jorgen Karlsson. I'm head of marine at ABB, responsible for the Swedish market.
And what is your background?
I'm an engineer, as all of us. I do not have a naval background, but I have a long experience in electrification, automation, and digitalisation.
Oh, that sounds very exciting, I think.
Yes, it is really exciting, and especially if we look at the shipping industries, which are moving in this direction. I think this background is valuable.
So when you had your exam as an engineer, what did you do then? What did you start with?
Well, actually, I didn't start at that type of work. I started at Saab Automobile in Trollhättan. So I was at the shop floor building cars. So I got my first introduction with robots in that industry. So that was actually what I did in the beginning before my military service.
And the military service, was that?
That was in Marine. So I was in the helicopter division at the Marine Department for the Swedish Navy.
That sounds exciting as well.
Yeah, that was a good year, I can tell you. It was a little bit military, but mostly we were out flying helicopters all over Sweden. And sometimes we were chasing submarines as well.
And then what? When you were out of the military service, what did you do then?
Yeah, then I started at an oil refinery in Sweden on the west coast called Preem. So I started there and spent 3 years there and on the instrument department, so working with analyzers and instrumentation on the refinery.
Mm-hmm. Mm. That's also very interesting. I think you got a background which leads up to where we are now, I think.
Yeah, I have, as most the other people I meet, they normally have the marine background for the whole life, and I don't have that. I have so completely different background, but still it is about automation, digitalization all the way through. It is, but in different industries. So after Preem, I started to work with trains, and that is definitely electrification. And been around at ABB for many years. So I joined ABB a long time ago, more than 25 years ago. So, but it has been a good company. It still is a good company. I had possibility to challenge myself the whole time, and that makes me stay. Of course, it's inspiring.
So, how did you come in contact with the shipping industry, then the marine part of ABB?
Actually, I was asked by the country manager for ABB in Sweden if I wanted to start up that department in Sweden, and that was almost 2 years ago. And my first comment was, we don't have any shipping industry in Sweden, I think. Well, Jörgen, you're completely wrong, he said. Look at these documents here. So I got a bunch of papers. I was reading these things through, and I realized that there is really a big shipping industry in Sweden. And it was extra interesting seeing this path to go to zero emission or change in from fossil-driven fuel, and then I feel I can contribute in this change and helping the market to go more environmental friendly. And that felt really good. So then it was very easy decision to make. So I accepted that nomination, and here I am.
So what do you do today then?
Today?
Yeah, what do you do here? What does ABB contribute with to the maritime industry?
Well, I think it's a lot, actually. Since we have this electrical background, we can help the shipping industry to shift out these fossil fuels in a stepwise approach. So if you look at new builds, of course, it's easy. Then you can, of course, have electrical motors on the shaft lines. You have an electrical grid on board, and you have different kind of power generation on board that creates the electrical power needed for the electrical motor. And that can be then diesel, it can be methanol, it can be different kind of fuels that you use for the electrical power generation. And by having that in place on a ship, you have a much easier upgrade possibility. You can easily shift over. That makes less environmental impact. So instead of rebuilding the main engines or replace the main engines, you replace generators instead. And that is a much easier task to manage. So that is what we can contribute with, and also do that quite a lot.
So for me, being a rookie in the engine room, this is not about the main engine. It's about...
Yeah, let's say you don't have the main engine as it looks. The main engine is just the big electrical motor, and that is really small compared to a main engine. And then you have several smaller main engines, and that are the generators. So it looks quite different in a machine room. And it's less oil, it's much less lubrication, it's less heat, less noise. So it looks quite different if you compare it to a traditional machine room. So people are normally very impressed when they go down in a machine room with this type of technology inside.
Must be quiet and not as oily as you said.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is definitely what we do and what we want more ship owners to do. But there is a challenge, of course, with the cost involved, and it's cheaper to buy a main engine and have this traditional shaft line and so on. It's in many cases it's cheaper, but in the short term. But in a long term, I'm convinced myself that this will be expensive. In the end of the day, it will be.
Is it suitable for all kinds of ships? I mean, I'm thinking trading, like for instance, between Sweden and Denmark is a very short distance, and that might be easier to have battery-driven ships than to have it crossing the Atlantic, or I don't know.
You are completely correct.
Wow.
Yeah, you are. So short distance are much easier to go fully electric instead of and having batteries on board. So fully battery-driven ferry, which is that is perfect conditions for that. And if you have a deep sea ship, that means crossing the Atlantic and so on, then there is not enough power in a battery package to make such a trip, and then you need a different fuel on board. So it starts with the short distances. It does.
I don't know much about how to build a ship either, but there must be. I mean, if I have a ship and I would like to install batteries. Hasn't that got anything to do with how big the battery is, how heavy it is, how much it will have an impact on the stability of the ship, or I don't know?
You're definitely no rookie here because you are correct in all these aspects. It is. So of course, I mean, its weights, its size, and it will affect the stability of the ship. But we have experienced in some cases when we are doing this modernization, we have experienced better stability in the ship, which is quite interesting. And in this case, we installed the batteries on top of the deck, and that makes the ship much smoother and much nicer.
Uh-huh.
I'm talking about two ferries down in Helsingborg, crossing between Sweden and Denmark, and they have quite big battery package on top of the deck, and they were rebuilt, so they are fully battery operated now, charged from the land side with green electricity on both sides, so they are really environmentally friendly. And there is a debate going on with the batteries, how to produce the batteries and environmental footprint and the energy needed to produce the batteries and so on. And when does this change help the environment in the big perspective? And these ferries down there, they have only in 14 days in operations, they serve the environment, and it's less footprint.
Wow.
Yeah. So if
and
you
those
compare
ships are not new because you have rebuilt them?
They are rebuilt, yes. But if you compare to a car, they normally need to drive 150,000 kilometers before they are environmentally friendly for real. But ships such as these, already in 14 days in operation. So for me, everyone should do this change if we really care about the environment.
Mm.
And I think the shipping industry also likes to do it. We are back to the costs again. It's more expensive, of course, to buy these batteries than a traditionally diesel engine. And that is the challenge for the moment.
But my experience is that the ship owners or people working for a ship owner on the technical side, they like the latest technical developments. So I'm not surprised that the people are open to it.
Yeah. And back to these ferries again, I'm talking about, you can definitely see when you meet the crew, they are so proud. They are so proud. They are so environmentally friendly. And also the passengers loves to use that ferries or these ferries because they know they don't pollute. And they also hear less noise. So it's almost everything is positive.
I think it's interesting to hear about all these alternative fuels because that is where we have to go. And there's so many initiatives coming along. Do you have experience from other kinds of fuel than the battery side?
Yes, we do. I mean, you can see methanol is a fuel that is used as well as LNG. And these are, of course, very interesting fuels. But the really interesting fuel, I think, is the hydrogen, especially if it's produced by solar or wind power, because then it's really green fuel. And this hydrogen you use as a fuel for fuel cells, and fuel cells has no exhaust at all. And so they are completely zero emission. And this works as a generator, as an old-fashioned generator in a way, but it's completely different equipment on board, and it's fueled by hydrogen. And this is really interesting, and that can be the range extender we need when there are longer routes to drive the ship. So that is really interesting too. And then we see fuel cells is entering this market. We have a couple of years now experience in the marine. The car industries has used them for a long time. So I'm hopeful, and I hope this will very soon be much more. We will see much more of this in the shipping industry.
So what about the infrastructure? I mean, I know where I can go and fuel and get some fuel into my car, but where do the electrical ships go to get their fuels? I mean, is this a common thing? Is there an infrastructure for all these new fuels that we are looking at in our industry?
No, far from. This is something that needs to be in place. So there are not that many ports who has this charging facility or land power, as you can call it as well. I mean, you don't have to have batteries on board to have use of electricity. All ships has electricity on board today. And this electricity is normally generated by generators or main engines on board the ship. So when they are staying in port, if they would have an outlet, so to say, so just plug in a cable, they could switch off the diesel generators on board the ship and go quiet and also without any emissions in the port. This is something that should happen and will happen. I sense when I meet the port authorities nowadays that they are really thinking about making this available for the ships. So this will happen, and but still, I think it can go faster, and we are ready at least to help here in this. It's not so complicated technology; it's quite easy.
So who's got the ball right now? Is it the shipping industry, or is it the politicians, or is it the ports, or who should do the next move to get?
Yeah, it's a combination of all of them, I would say. I mean, the ship owners, of course, they need to have the need of the electricity, so they need a cable, and the port need a plug or an outlet. And both these things are investments, and investments need to be paid in some way. And here today, as it looks, it seems like the investments is a bit high compared to the benefits. So by having some kind of support from politicians in order to make this shift, like let's say they get a rebate if they are entering a port and they plug in the cable and they are switch off their engines, they could have a rebate in some way. That would be lubricating this shift change that is needed to be done, I think. And it will also make sense because in the city centers, many ports are in the city centers. And by shifting out these engines, switching off these engines, you will have less pollution in the city centers. And it will also become quiet. So for me, it seems like it should be done already, but it can be done very soon, I hope.
So how do you see the future for shipping in general? I mean, we are on the edge of everything is happening now. How do you see that developing into the future?
It will happen a lot here, and this is so exciting to be in this industry because it is really happening now, and it's happening everywhere on the ship, as I see it. Now we have been talking very much about the electrification on board, but if we shift up to look at the bridge and also considering the possibilities with digitalisation, there is a huge potential here. So if we, for example, look at the bridge on a ship, it is really old-fashioned today. There is a lot of navigation systems, there is radio communication systems, and all these things are on the bridge and totally isolated equipment. And this is interesting how a captain having this big responsibility, maneuvering this big ship in tight areas with lots of other ships, that they are really skilled to make this maneuvering so safe as they do, and there are not that many accidents. But if you consider that you would have an integrated bridge with this technology on one screen with a more active navigation system compared to a car, for instance, you have lots of navigation aids in a car. This is not really in the shipping industry today. There are some pilots here and there, but there is not really a demand from the captains yet. And this is really something that will happen and will be really nice because that will increase the safety. It will also be a better working environment for the people. And I also think it will attract the young generation that want to have an interesting job because it will be much more high-tech on the bridge and much more safer and more stuff.
I don't know. I have a theory, because when I started out this podcast, I asked everyone that I met, what do you think about autonomous ships? And people who are captains or master mariners who are older than I am, or my age or older, they say that will never happen. And the young people I met says, when do they come? So I think it's also a matter of, I mean, if you've been a master mariner or if you've been a captain for 20 odd years or something like that, it's hard to imagine that new digital bridge and everything getting together. I think so. I mean, it's the same at home. Do we use all the things that we could use at home that could help us? It's a matter of maybe getting used to it, or seeing that it's not frightening. It's something good and it will help us.
Yeah, very well said. But I mean, as long as you get used to it, you will not like to be without it. Just look at the cell phone you have today. You have all the things in there. You cannot live without it almost. I have problems at least.
Yeah, we're also a traditional industry. And it has been one way forever and ever, and it's hard to change the culture.
Yeah, but I don't think it is that hard if we do it in the right way. And I think to engage the people on the bridge, to make them understand and also touch and feel the stuff before it's really a fact on the bridge, so they can be a part of the design phase. I have actually a very good experience. We have been working with a Swedish company here where several captains has been involved in this, and they have been giving their view of the technology on board, and they, from the beginning, they were not too keen about that, because they saw this navigation aid system will help them to or will reduce the number of jobs, and their job will be in danger in the future. But when they saw this, that it will make them having a better working environment, safer on the bridge and so on, they totally changed their opinion, and they are all on and want to have this technology on the bridge. So I think it is a little bit to understand, how can this help me? As all technology, I think, but it has to be implemented in a realistic way, in a good way, so the reception will be good. But it's not only about safety and working environment. We can also help the environment by having this technology on the bridge, because we can help the captain to drive the ship in a more energy efficient way. And if it is fueled by diesel, we will have less pollution. That's very easy, and we have lots of KPIs justifying what I'm just saying. And if the fuel is battery operated, it will also have a huge impact of the cost for the battery investment, because if it uses less fuel, less energy, you don't need that big battery package, and the battery packages are very expensive. So here there are really some good payback by implementing this technology on the bridge, because you save fuel. And we have seen lots of examples where captains are using twice as much as fuel as another captain for the same route with the same ship. And that speaks for itself, I think. If we can optimize that consumption and have the best captain and make all the captains as good as the best captain, then we reduce the fuel consumption. So the payback is really good here. Yeah.
What do you think about autonomous ships?
I think autonomous will not be unmanned for us. It will be a crew on board, but a crew that has a much better cockpit and make decisions and so on. And so that's what I see in front of me. I also see that we can avoid accidents, collision avoidance, and these kind of things. I also can see that the availability of the ship will be higher. They will need less time dry docking for services, because all this technology will help them to predict what is needed to do and when. And we can also avoid damaging equipment by having this this kind of technology on board. So I think that this is what I have seen on the land side, and it is very much implemented on the land side. So why don't we do this on the marine side? It's the same type of technology, same type of people. After all, it's people. So it's more an experience, and also how to utilize all these possibilities in a good way. So I think there is a lot of good things to do in the shipping.
How far away is it, this autonomous?
It is here already. We have technology, we have demonstrators, we have really firm contracts as well to deliver this. But autonomous, as said again, it's not unmanned, but it will be connected. It will be a remote operations center that are supervising the ship and helping the captain on board to make the right decisions. And it also includes this navigation aid systems. This is here. It has been here since, I think we started off at 2016 or 2017. We started having this technology out on the boats, on the ships. So we know it works.
And the remote control centers, who works there?
Yeah, that's maybe the experts. Let's say, as we have done on the land side, we have experts in compressor systems, machinery systems, and so on. So instead of having the expert on board, you have the expert on the land side, and the expert can reach any ship that is connected. So as we said when I was in the oil and gas business, we were talking about, instead of taking the expert to the plant, you bring the plant to the expert. And this is the same type of things we can do in the center. So they are really the skill team for certain equipment, maybe not navigation, but support equipment, machinery or whatever on board.
It's not far away from whatever kind of occupation you have. I mean, I work a lot with people in other countries. I sit at home and I have video meetings with my friends or with my clients and whatever. And that's not for me anything unusual at all. It's just a matter of getting used to it.
Yeah. Yes. And that I have seen in the oil and gas business, that we had, like we have Skype meetings, we have then a virtual meeting room where you have an expert from a third-party company, expert on this compressor. You had some people from ABB, you had some people from the client side. They were not sitting together, but virtually they were sitting together and they were sharing information. So instead of gathering all the people in the same room, you can easily just connect all of them. And this we have really good experience in, and it's really helpful. So it's
happening
here now.
Yeah, it's happening, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, of course.
So how do you think that the shipping industry could become more visible? We need to attract young people, and we need to get the politicians understanding what we are trying to achieve. We are often called the Cinderella industry. We do the job, but no one knows about us. Do you have any good ideas on how we could become more visible?
Yeah, I think the technology can help us at least to recruit the new generation of co-workers, for sure, because you can see that in other industries that they are visible thanks to the technology.
So who would you be curious to listen to in the shipping podcast? Who do you think I should meet the next?
Well, I think it would be interesting if you had a politician. That would be interesting how they see and and the question to them would also be, how can you help the shipping industry to shift to zero emission? What do you see? How can you contribute? That would be interesting to hear, because I think they want and they also have the power to do it. So that I would like to hear about.
Okay. Thank you very much for participating and being a guest on the Shipping Podcast. How about that? You got an update on the fossil fuel shift. I want to give you an update on what happened to me when I was attending the European Shipping Week in Brussels 2 weeks ago. It was a very eventful week, I can tell you that. Besides the fact that the aeroplane that I was traveling home with was struck by lightning and we had to return to the airport that we just left, I was not able to conduct any interviews in the hotel where the event took place. I had lined up some great guests for you and put up my gear. The guest was in front of me, ready to speak about what is stopping us from reaching the reduction of carbon that we have set up. And all I could hear in my ears was a radio station. I tried to record, but it could also be heard on the tape. So all I could do was to apologize to the guest and cancel the interviews. I got on a chat with my lifeline in podcasting, the Elsie Escobar, who immediately got in contact with the producer of my recording gear to ask what was wrong. After a while, I think it was a very long time, but it probably wasn't, the reply came back. There is probably a radio mast very close to the hotel that is disturbing your equipment. Yeah, probably on the roof. We were on the 26th floor. So my cords became the antenna for connecting to the radio instead of just behaving normal and recording my guests. I was rather devastated. I don't meet these important people so many times, and I wanted you to hear what they have to say. But after having found that out, I went down to my hotel room on the 6th floor to see if there was any change, if I was further away from the radio mast. But nope. Yeah, maybe a little bit less loud, but still, there was the radio again, with that annoying radio guy. My educated guess, after having realized that the Wi-Fi of the hotel and the 4G net bounced on each other, was that the hotel had a lousy connection and that I should just let go of being a podcast producer at the time. I just wanted to let you in on what I am struggling with, or was 2 weeks ago. I have since then recorded, and my equipment is acting normal again. So now I'm off to make another interview for you with an engine manufacturer. So until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.